In the book Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, the entire story is full of symbolism relating back to some main essentials in life, such as family, love, and independence, in parallel to nature. Throughout the novel, the narrator Janie constantly refers back to nature and how it is relatable to her life, both in her marriages and in her independence. Zora Neale Hurston does a magnificent job at depicting a story full of realism. Not an attempt to put down the book. Its realism is actually one of the best qualities, but not much actually happens to Janie throughout the story. Thanks to her upbringing by her grandmother and her own want to marry for love, Janie spends a good portion of the story courting husbands. She also spends a lot of time thinking about nature, running the store that Jody built, and you can't forget all the time she spends comparing herself to a pear tree. Janie's happiness goes through various amounts of levels throughout the novel, usually depending on who she was with at the time. Her happiness usually correlates with her independence, except for at her lowest point. Her distress at Tea-Cake's death proves that she had finally found what she was looking for. At the end, her happiness seems more contentness. Although she seems the happiest when she's without a man, Janie only spends 36 pages of the entire book single, half of that being during her adolescence. With each marriage, though, although technically not determined by the number of years, each of them has a longer span of pages of time covered. With the amount of time that Janie ponders whether or not she is happy in her relationship, she still wonders if she will ever have happiness like that of the bee in the pear tree. Here's a Venn diagram comparing when she was married to when she was happy. The only marriage she was happy in was with Tea-Cake, and even that relationship was rocky at points. Hurston uses a ton of parallels throughout the story. One of the most prevalent symbols is the beauty and fertility of the pear tree, mentioned 5 times by Janie throughout the first half of the novel. To Janie, the pear tree represents freedom and love. The parallel symbol of oppression, the mule, is mentioned at least 8 times. Neither of these are mentioned at the same time. It is only when Matt Bonner's yellow mule becomes free when a symbolic tree is mentioned in relativity to the mule. Janie is constantly making comparisons of people and her life to nature. More often than not, it is in comparison to the trees, specifically the image of the flowering pear tree she used to sit under as a child. Janie seems at one with nature, and it is her outlet for when she is at peace with the world. As Hurston writes in the beginning of Janie's story, Janie saw her life like a great pear tree and leaf, with the things suffered, things enjoyed, things done and undone. Hurston's poetic writing is also very balanced with what is occurring in the story. The free-flowing writing style, packed with analogies, symbolism, and reference to nature in all of its forms, is directly proportional to when she feels happy and independent. This is most evident with her marriage with Jody. Hurston's narration becomes incredibly blunt and direct. Her references to nature are also most prominent in her naivety. The more life experience she has, and the more she gets a realistic outlook on life, the less she sees things in comparison to nature, something she holds on to so dearly in life. It stays absent throughout her life until the very end, when she begins to feel peaceful when she has told her story. After reading Their Eyes Were Watching God, there were many varied reactions and discussion of how the story actually ended. The number of people who believed that the ending was her reaching peace in life, shedding her troubles, and going up to heaven was about equal to those who believed that she was moving on with her life. Of course, there was also the percentage that completely forgot that Janie was telling the story in past tense to Phoebe. But once again, the symbolism comes back into full focus in the ending paragraphs of Their Eyes Were Watching God. The kiss of his memory made pictures of love and light against the wall. Here was peace. She pulled in her horizon like a great fishnet, pulled it from around the waist of the world and draped it over her shoulder. So much of life in its meshes. She called in her soul to come and see. For me, it seems much more climactic that after all of her troubles in life, she would make it up to heaven to rejoin Tea-Cake. In doing so, she has finally reached peace, shedding oppression and achieving her vision of the bee in the pear tree.